And got it. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Bridget, for asking me to speak. I've done this one other time, so not very often. Yeah. So my story. I will do a little bit of backstory, but I'll go fast. I grew up in Alaska, where I still live. My parents came up here in '64, and I was a 1-year-old. And I grew up here, and it was not only a fishing state, but an oil boom state, right? So sort of double the alcohol and drugs running around and money. But overall, it was a very good place, I think, to grow up. Lots of opportunities, and you could still be a free range kid up here in a lot of ways. I still love the state, but there was alcohol in my house. So my mom, typical martini drinker, but then she also got into that was the time of the 60s, 70s, mother's little helpers. So there were the drugs to calm her nerves. I think anxiety is something that is run in my family, and that was just her solution to do that. I think back then it was also a diet drug to be on those. And so that was going on. She and her husband, my stepdad, my parents divorced when I was 2. So I had a number of stepdads, which also kind of adds to the mix. But my brother had early onset schizophrenia. We started recognizing it. He was 11, so I was about 8 or 9. No, I was probably 7, 8, 9, 10, yeah, 7. And that was a real stressor on the family, and just didn't know what to do. I mean, that just wasn't something that mental health in Alaska in 60s, 70s just wasn't a thing, you know. So it was very hard on the family, and she wound up getting a divorce, and then kind of the crux of the worst, I would say, happened. But she moved my sister and I to Mountain View, and her boss put her on working nights, and we were just kind of left out there. We were just really, we were these little honor roll kids that grew up in the borough in Rabbit Creek, and now we're living in inner city. Mountain View is not a great place to live. And it was just, and we were just so naive, and it was a rough junior high school. And it was just really tough. And then there was a series of, because she would go from work to the bars to home with somebody, and they were always drunk in the morning. So Ann and I were always trying to navigate our way around 2 drunk people in the morning to get ready for school. And that was a real challenge. And during that time, she overdosed a couple times. We wound up driving her. We laugh about it now, but we wound up driving her to the hospital a few times, and people looked at us. I mean, here's 11 and 13-year-old kids in the car, and Ann was 14 because she had her permit, and they're like, "What are you doing driving the car?" And she's like, "Well, I have a permit, and there's an adult in the car." And of course, the adult is my mother ODing, right? So nobody did anything. In some ways, I think I'm grateful, because we would have wound up in a foster care system, and instead we were both very ingenious, and we figured out our own care throughout those years. A couple years later, actually, I left the house, and so pretty much my sophomore and junior year, I lived with other families that by choice. So I had a couple high school friend, and then my boyfriend's family took me in. And then And then I got my own apartment, which was fabulous to live on my own and live by myself. I did that my senior year. And then my 20s, it just was kind of a dream because I don't know, I just wasn't impacted by other people. I got to make my own decisions, and I stayed way away from alcohol. I was a teetotaler. I didn't even drink because I grew up in that, and I just thought, I'm never going to do that. Not to say that I didn't maybe have it. I had an occasion in my teens with rum and got horribly sick. And even in my alcoholic years, I did not like rum because of that experience. But my 20s, I traveled. I did a variety of fun things. I did all of North America on a BMW motorcycle. And then I eventually got to college and got my degree and a lot of rough relationships. I don't think, given that I had, I think 5 stepdads, I never was good at relationships. That was, the codependency piece is very strong in me. And but I got married at 29, 30. And, I just kind of felt like I'd made it. I'd made it in a normal life with, I was teaching and married to a lawyer. And I just felt like, I'd made it out of whatever that life was. And then my mom died in my 40s. My mother died of lung cancer, and something snapped. I'd also had my son by then. He was young. I went through a postpartum with him, and so that was a struggle. But that was the time I really started drinking. It was after she died, and it was kind of passed off as, well, she's mourning. Yeah, I am mourning. But I don't know, there was just a flood unlocked. And that was when, before I even knew about trauma counseling or any of that, that's kind of what was happening. I found a counselor, and that was kind of the road that I was going down. It's like unpacking a lot of that stuff that I just been really happy to lock up. Just everything from, I don't know, age 12 to 18. So I found AA then, the traditional AA, and I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and my home group was at that church, which was more liberal than most, but the God message was still there and still, always nagging me. I always, like some of us have talked about it, the bait and switch, oh, God can be anything, you're fine, we're so accepted. And then, after the first year or so, well, what's your higher power? What, my shares would never quite make the cut because they didn't talk about God. Or if somebody asked me to read like how it works or something, I'd change all the pronouns, and then, nobody'd ever ask me again. Just a lot of things that just never clicked. And I did go out. I got tired of it. I don't even know if I stopped going to meetings. I can't remember enough right then. I do know the big event was I got diagnosed with breast cancer. And I just felt like, what the fuck? Like, I'm doing all of this work towards this, and I still get sick. So, or diagnosed. I wouldn't even say I was sick. But I just let a lot of things lead up to, and I'd have to say there were, if I unpacked that, there were a lot of precursors in my brain. These people, it just doesn't quite fit. It's like I've described it as like not being quite on the right radio station, like being in my car and just not hitting it right, and yet that's the only one. Like, if you travel down the Kenai Peninsula, there's one radio station that hovers over all, and you are forever stuck. It's not horrible, but you are forever stuck in the 80s and listening to bop music, right? So with a little bit of 70s. But it's just like, I couldn't get out of that radio station of the traditional AA. And I went to Hawaii for a couple of weeks on my own, and I started drinking there. And I think it was a slow move into it. I think a lot of my existing friends at that time were kind of relieved. Oh, you know, Jana drinks wine again. Oh, Jana can do stuff. And my husband then was a brewer, and it was a really big thing in the family, really big thing in his life. I mean, everything was around the brew club. And so it was a real separation. Like I just didn't do all the things that those folks did. And suddenly, you know, I'm kind of back in the fold. And then fast forward divorce, and dating somebody who has had a very serious drinking problem, more so than me. Just, you know, I just didn't realize it because when I met him, he was sober, and then it just snowballed pretty rapidly. And I found AlAnon, and within about 2 weeks of going to AlAnon meetings, I decided I needed to go back to AA meetings, but I really didn't want to go back to traditional AA. And I found, you know, at that time, now I do podcasts and stuff, and I had found the Beyond Belief, and I had heard Anna B speaking on Beyond Belief. And I thought, wow, this is something else. There's something else out there. And this, you know, it's been before pandemic. And, you know, and then I found out about the Jeffrey Munn book, and I ordered some books, and I actually went through the 12 steps that time with my Al-Anon sponsor, who was a Unitarian, also a friend of mine, and she was fine with the secular steps, and continued in that ilk. And then I went to a really traditional meeting because my principal would let me go at lunchtime, which was great. But it was a great experience. There are just a lot of different people. Now, maybe that's one thing I miss about in-person meetings is, you know, it is good to mix it up and have different people, because this was where all the bikers went and where all the prisoners went. So the bus showed up and all that, you know, there wasn't any women. It was kind of dirty. And, but I could drive over there in about 7 minutes and 7 minutes back. My principal gave me an hour instead of the normal. Normally teachers get a 30-minute lunch. So, you know, I went to that one, and I learned a lot, and it was a lot of support. It was great in a lot of ways. But when things came up that were real gaudy, I would just go pick up a book and just read literature until that was done. That was kind of my mute button in the real rooms, right? But with pandemic, then, you know, all of this opened up. I think it would be real interesting to know maybe what was the first secular meeting. It might have been one of these that I went to. I don't know now. I think it was an SRG meeting, might have been one of my first. And then, you know, the lists and all kinds of things. And then I found out about Sober She-Devils, which I absolutely love. And it also helped me get through the pandemic, just gardening and having you guys out in my in my greenhouse with my backyard with me all the time, being able to listen to meetings. That was wonderful. And so that's just kind of where I am now, is, you know, having a secular program and really getting to, I don't feel like I'll get bored with this program, because it's always changing. There's always different ideas that come out. We argue about these steps versus no steps versus, I don't want to say argue, but, you know, we throw a lot of stuff out there. We throw a lot of literature out there. People bring in lots of different ideas, and I move all around. For a while I was like, yeah, no steps, you know, maybe just one step, you know. And then I was like, well, I'm retiring, maybe that would be fun. And there was a writers group I went to one morning. I haven't made it since. I think it was a snow, or AKA rain day up here. We can deal with snow, we can't deal with rain. You know, and I made one of those meetings. So I just feel like there's so many different opportunities now. And that would be my best word of hope for folks, is if you get like in a meeting and you really like it, or you find one you don't like, there's so many choices. And, you know, go around and check out different meetings and different flavors. And maybe one future goal would be to try to have a secular meeting in Anchorage at some point, if I ever decided to do that. I don't have a desire right now, but when I have more time on my hands after May 20th, when I retire, maybe that'll happen. We'll just have to see. So thanks everyone for being here and let me share my story.
Thank you so much, Jana. Great to hear from you. And I've definitely seen you around these Zoom meetings for a while, so I'm glad